Hi, my name is Jesse at Trash Panda, where it's our mission to grow the sport sustainably. And as you already may know, we make a disc out of sustainable materials, but we're not the only ones. So today I wanted to take you through every sustainable disc option on the market, whether it includes recycled discs, recycled tires, or even sawdust. And stick around till the end because we're gonna give literally every single one of these away, as well as letting you know how you can get one of our new patches. So the word sustainable is kind of like an umbrella term that involves a bunch of different categories underneath. So for our purposes today, I actually split the discs we're going to talk about into two separate categories. There's recycled and other. Now, other is kind of a conglomerate of a bunch of innovative things that companies are doing, and it gets super interesting. But we're going to start with recycled. When it comes to the word recycled in disc golf, most companies that are using it are doing something similar. So I want to talk about how they're doing it first, and then we'll talk about who's doing it. Now, the how that they're doing it is pretty simple, and it comes down to the injection molding process. When you're injection molding, you start with a raw material. The raw material is then made into a disc. Now, some of the discs come out with blemishes on them. For example, we have discs that come out with sink or cold slugs or something that would cause us not to sell that disc. Those discs can then be ground up into another raw material that can then be used to be made into discs. Now, typically when companies are doing that, they're not using 100% of that material, rather they're combining it with their original raw material as well. So I really should have two piles here because I didn't plan that out well. So they take their original raw material, then they take their ground up discs, combine them, and make a new disc. In our opinion, this is the baseline for what every manufacturer should and could be doing, because whether we acknowledge it or not, every single manufacturer has thirds, and the options are either to throw them away or use them to make a new disc. As far as we can tell, there's 6 companies currently doing this. There's Innova with their EcoStar, which is made from up to 50% recycled content. There's Latitude 64 with their recycled line, which is made from a blend of their gold and optoplastics. Actually, fun fact there, I think it's now called Biogold. It was originally called Reprocessed. This one, though, is called recycled. There's Dynamic Discs with their Biofuzion, which is simply a combination of their Lucid and Fusion plastics. There's Westside with their Revive plastic, which is made from a combination of their VIP and Tournament plastics. Basically, Westside, Latitude, and Dynamic are all kind of doing the same thing because they're manufactured in the same place. There's MVP's R2 Neutron, which is made from an eco-conscious recycled material, which is what they say on their website. Really, it's just ground up discs. And finally, there's Kastaplast Regrind, which they actually say nothing about on their website, and these are actually pretty hard to come by. So of all the discs we're gonna give away in this video, this actually might be the one that's the most valuable, but I'll let you decide for yourself. Now, when it comes to recycled plastic from these companies, you might be asking yourself, how does it affect the flight? Because this might be a mold that you already know and love, but does it being recycled mean it'll fly different? And the answer to that question is yes, slightly, but it's a little more interesting than that. In the world of plastics recycling, plastics are not infinitely recyclable because they break down slowly over time. And that's due to the fact that they go through separate heat cycles when they're molded. And this is where the interesting part comes into play, because in disc golf, rather than break down, we kind of have terminology for that already, and it's beat in. So basically, when it comes to the discs you know and love, in a recycled plastic version, they actually simply act just slightly more beat in. And to show you how that works, I have this Westside Discs Warship. It's the Revive version, and I also have this Westside Discs Warship in the Tournament plastic. And on screen right now, you can see how they're flying compared to one another, and the fact that the recycled version is just acting slightly more beat in. So if you're ever in the market for a disc that you know and love, but you want it to act slightly more beat in out of the box, consider the recycled version. So these discs are from the recycled lines, and now we're going to move on to the other category. And the other category is where things get pretty interesting. If you watched our last video, you'd know that there's a company called Elevation that's well known for a very flexible disc. They actually make their discs out of rubber, and they recently came out with their Ecoflop and Ecoflex materials. The cool thing about the Ecoflop and the Ecoflex material respectively is they contain up to 30% recycled content from the medical medical and automotive industries. The only con I'd say about these discs is that they're made in China, so depending on where you are in the world, that might be a good thing or a bad thing. But no matter what, at the end of the day, there's a lot of material that needs recycling in China, so props to Elevation for doing something. Speaking of made in China, next up is Yikun Discs Nature line. I know they came out with this last year, but unfortunately there's nothing on their website about this in their plastic section of the website. So we had to refer to Infinite Discs, which claims on their website that the Nature line is a premium plastic that uses a healthy dose of sawdust. Now, to me, that's a really interesting story. Basically, they're taking plastic and sawdust and combining them, and that's cool because at the end of the day, it means less plastic, less virgin plastic specifically being used. But in the long run, it does have negative effects for the future recyclability of this because it's way harder to recycle. So in my head, I think this is a cool story, but it's not a ton of improvement. Who knows? It might lead to some cool things in disc golf though. Next up is Latitude 64's Ecoplastic, which we actually made an entire video on back in 2021 when it came out, so we'll link that up here. But for the purposes of this video, I'll simply say that their Ecoplastic is what's traditionally in the plastics world known as a bioplastic, meaning that rather than using crude oils in the making of this disc, it actually used plant-based oils. Unfortunately, the initial response to this plastic was simply that it was basically a stiff baseline, so it didn't catch on super well. But that industry, bioplastics in general, has a pretty bright future, so it'll be interesting to see what people do there. And at the end of the day, I think this provides a great alternative to more traditional baseline plastics. Why not use something bio-based rather than crude oil based? So not bad. Next up is Gateway's Organic. Now, Gateway is extremely innovative and has been around for a while. And the last three discs we actually talked about were recycled rubber, pretty creative with the sawdust, and bioplastic. And Gateway has actually done a combination of kind of all of those things. With their organic line, it actually uses bioplastics and recycled rubbers together. So that's what you get in their organic plastic. And then they also have their organic hemp, which includes some hemp plastic, which is a bio-based plastic. Now, to be totally honest with you, I'm learning more every day about the recycling industry, so I don't know how combining materials actually affects the future recyclability of those discs. Though I do know that it does complicate it, it still may be possible. So all around, I'd say this is super cool and it's really creative. I mean, Dave at Gateway has always been pushing the boundaries and created some really interesting products. Actually, fun fact, I putted with this disc for like 5 years. So I'm gonna give that away. Next up is AGL Discs, which stands for Above Ground Level. Now, they're also made by Gateway, but they warrant their own category altogether because they're doing something really innovative that no one else is doing. AGL claims that every single one of their discs includes recycled plastic. They're kind of unclear on how much in each disc, but the fact that there's recycled plastic in every single one of the discs, it makes it clear to me that they're doing more than really anyone else. So it's super commendable, and if you haven't tried the Baobab, you should try the Baobab. There's 2 more left, and the last one is my favorite, but before that, I'll mention just quickly, and yes, we're super biased, our discs. Since we talk about these all the time, I'll simply just say that we are extremely transparent about the fact that our discs are made from 100% recycled plastic, and additionally, we're very transparent about the plastic they're made from. So transparent, in fact, that it actually says the type of plastic on the bottom of the disc so that these discs are more easily recycled down the line. When it comes down to it, most disc golf companies have very creative names for their plastics, but if those plastics ended up in a recycling facility, no one's gonna know how to recycle a Champion plastic or K1 soft plastic. So for us, we keep the plastic name exactly what it is so that it can be recycled down the line, not just by us. But actually stay tuned because our next video has some kind of exciting news on that front too, but I won't spoil it for now. There's one more category we have to get through, and it's my favorite of all, and I don't have any here, but it's used discs. This might seem like a cop-out, but it truly is not. Used discs are the most sustainable option on the market because rather than using the energy and resources needed to make a new disc, they already exist. And I can't even imagine how many used discs are actually out there. So whether it's slightly used, beaten to perfection, or perfect for a beginner, next time you're in the market for a disc, consider going to your local shop or even Facebook Marketplace and buying used. So these are the current sustainable disc options on the market, and we're so excited to see what else comes out over the coming years. In fact, we're so excited that we just released our Throw Recycled disc patches to continue to encourage this type of growth in the sport. And on top of that, we're giving all of these away. Here's how. If you order one of our new patches, we're gonna choose, I think it's like 15 random winners to win one of these discs. And since we can, we're gonna throw an inner core in with every single one. So you can just go to our site, grab a new Throw Recycled disc patch, and who knows, maybe one of these will show up in the package as well. But no matter what, we hope you consider investing in the sustainable future of disc golf. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe to support the channel, and we'll see you next time.